And thanks to you, my Indian-born parents have finally achieved my newfound definition of the American dream, which is moving to the United States in the hope that one day your child will testify before the Dutch Parliament. But these do-gooding activities, pursued by the winners of American capitalism, sat uncomfortably beside a second, grimmer phenomenon. Even as these elites talked and did so much about seeking justice, they were, as a social class, becoming virtual monopolists of progress itself. That same 1% that was so generous was capturing half of all new income in the United States, in large part because its members lobbied for public policies that ensured that outcome. The 0.1% was reported to hold more wealth than the bottom 80% of Americans put together. The 400 richest families were found to pay a lower effective tax rate than those hundreds of times poorer than them. And most Americans were found to be unable to withstand the shock of a $400 emergency expense without tumbling into debt. And as you know, in the United States, we have a lot more of those emergency expenses than you have here because so much less is covered. I began to wonder what the relationship was between this extraordinary elite helping, which is real, and the extraordinary elite hoarding that was equally real. The conventional wisdom, I think, was that the elite helping was well-meaning and was doing everything it could, but that there simply wasn't enough of it. If only we maybe had more billionaires, if only billionaires could figure out how to give their money away more effectively, if only there were more Mark Zuckerbergs. Scary, right? But I began to be curious about an opposite possibility. What if the rampant elite generosity that I saw around me was part of how we maintained the rampant elite hoarding? What if in the plutocracy that America was becoming, the plutocrats, or the plutes, as I like to call them to save time, had figured out how to do just enough good to cleanse their names and reputations, douse resentment, bend public discourse in favorable directions, and stave off more thoroughgoing reforms that would be good for the society, but bad for them. After all, it was telling that when the change agents of market world, as I call it, put forward their visions, they seldom talked about things like taxes, unions, regulations, laws, and democracy itself. They saw very little role for people like you. They wanted to change the world, but only if the changes in question were win-wins, were good for the plutocrats and for the public. They weren't interested in real change, which in this era, like in so many eras, necessarily involves the loss of power for those who have too much. With these questions in mind, I began my investigation as a reporter 4 years ago. As I have with my other books, I went deep into the world I was trying to understand, to report on it. In this case, the plutocracy. The wine was delicious. I spent time with foundation leaders and corporate types and young people, and even a former American president who has become the great best friend of all the world's plutocrats. And what I found I will distill for you this way. In America today, but not only in America, of course, a great deal of what is marketed as change is in fact a sly, subtle defense of the status quo. It is change paid for, supervised by, and governed by the winners of capitalism, partly in the hope that our system of capitalism itself won't be questioned. In this way, I found making a difference has become the wingman of making a killing. Giving back has become the wingman of excessive taking. Generosity has become the wingman of injustice. And changing the world, that ubiquitous term, has become the wingman of ensuring that the plutocrats' world does not change. In America, but also beyond it, woke capitalism, also known as the new capitalism, conscious capitalism, or doing well by doing good capitalism, has become a smokescreen, distracting us from the manic hypercapitalism that has shredded our opportunity structure and now imperils the earth.